We are about to jump into our discussion zone right about now. Today is World Wildlife Day, and yes, it is all about preserving, protecting forest livelihoods. Sustaining people and planet. And this is a day that we really need to be conscious about, right? Because a lot of things taking place, and we feel it's just a natural thing, and we don't actually talk about them. But this is very problematic. Now, let me just read this piece. It says Africa is home to some of the world's most endangered species, including the mountain gorilla, gravers, zebras, and Ethiopian wolf. To protect populations from further decline, there are people need to be trained. Rangers need to be equipped enough to be able to get rid of some of these people who are and dealing in this illegal acts. However, on the 20th of December 2013, at the 68th session, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 3rd of March, the day of signature of the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. That's cities in 1973. Now, the United Nations General Assembly resolution also, designed the CT Secretariat as the facilitator for the global observance of the special day for wildlife on the United Nations calendar. World Wildlife Day has now become the most important global annual event dedicated to wildlife. Now, we're going to be talking about that right here, as it's very important. There are lots of activities that we can cite examples from. Mami mentioned one. I believe she will be talking about that whilst the conversation goes on. But yeah, Hafiz just joined us. Guy,
Charlie,
how are you doing?
I did.
Great, great. When was the last time you visited a zoo?
Whoa.
Have you ever even? First of all, that's the question I should be asking.
That's like ages.
Oh, you
Ages
have
ago.
been?
Yeah.
Where? Kumasi Zoo, Accra Zoo?
Kumasi.
Ah,
Yeah.
right. Which animal did you remember getting very close to?
I think the lion.
The lion.
Yes, the lion.
Were you surprised
That
by
was way back in 2008 or so.
208?
Yes.
Okay. Family visitation or
No,
more of
school.
like school stuff? Ah, yeah, that's where it all comes from. I know, right? But today is World Wildlife Day, a very important conversation, in preserving and of course, preserving things that has to do with livelihoods generally. Yeah. And today is one of those days that we need to take a look at it and see if we have actually done much in preserving these wildlife, our forest buddies and what have you, or we have a long way to go.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Speaking of wildlife, World Wildlife Day. Now, it's a good thing we are talking about it because, when you talk wildlife, there's the tendency to lean towards just animals.
Animals, exactly.
But the good thing about this day is that it shines light on the plants, the forest, basically, when you
Absolutely.
talk about World Wildlife Day. So it's basically celebrating, it's to commemorate the protection of everything, plants and animals.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to sound technical, I think you mentioned it. It's all about the fauna and flora, the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but one might ask why it is important for us. What business have I here, sitting here, got to do with a lion in the wild or
Yeah.
or the the forest and everything? But just people will try to ask themselves why you should concern yourself with such matters. But there are a lot of reasons why it should concern you. Yes, matters regarding the wildlife should concern you.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and because of reasons of time, I wouldn't be able to go through all, but just a few that comes top of my head. I would say one, you are talking about the medicinal value of it. If you talk about wildlife, we are yet to explore certain species of plants and everything,
Absolutely.
and these are very crucial when it comes to the production of medicine and everything.
Okay.
And even with the animals. So when you talk about, say, the cobra, for instance, yes, the serum from it simply starts with the venom of the cobra
Yeah.
and every other snake type, kind of snake you find around. And so we have that. There's also the promotion of tourism. Yes, you mentioned Tanzania a lot in your submission.
Yeah.
Yes, and Tanzania is home to a lot of wildlife. Yes,
Wildlife,
and
yeah,
because
yeah.
of it, they attract a lot of tourists. So
Absolutely.
not just Tanzania, you're talking Kenya.
Kenya,
Yes,
Botswana, Malawi.
Kenya, South Africa, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a lot of wildlife, and you see people troop towards some of these places just to
Right.
catch a glimpse of nature
These, yeah.
at its best. And
Mm.
if you're talking about the forests, you are looking at the Amazon, and
Brazil.
yes, the Amazon
Mm.
rainforest, and you
Mm.
have people going to Brazil, Costa Rica,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
just to enjoy
Mm.
these places.
Mm.
There are certain benefits, such as even the aesthetic ones.
Right.
For places that are under conservations. Like the zoos you mentioned,
Yep.
or the parks, that
Mm-hmm.
is game parks and everything.
Yep.
You have people trying to move away from the hustle and bustle of city life, and then
Exactly.
they
The
retreat.
fumes and what
Exactly.
you inhale and what have you.
Yes, so
Right.
they retreat into places like this just to
Enjoy nature.
enjoy nature.
Breathe in the
Yes,
free, clean air.
yes, just to
Right.
blow off some steam anyway.
Mm.
So, and there's also the part about the preservation of culture. Now, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the Dagbon Kingdom and the lion.
Exactly.
Now, there are certain animals that have some special attachments with certain
Yeah,
tribes and
symbols,
cultures.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
And so, when these animals go extinct,
Mm.
what it means is that there's a certain generation that wouldn't know a certain part of their culture
Exactly.
when it comes to these animals and everything.
Yeah, because
And
they are related.
exactly,
Yeah.
there are some relations in there, so you
Mm.
have that. But with all these reasons, I mean,
Mm.
but unfortunately, there are certain human activities that tend to militate against the conservation of
Of these, yeah.
wildlife.
Mhm.
And you mentioned poaching
Yeah.
in your submission. There's also the issue of, the expansion of agricultural activities. There's
Mhm.
also logging. And yes, and
Yep.
trophy
Yep.
hunting. In the case
Felling
of
and what have you.
Cecil the lion in 2015, yes, in Zimbabwe. I don't know if you caught that
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It was a serious issue,
serious
you
issue.
know.
Exactly. And if you go into the details of everything that transpired in there, I mean, it's something
It's something else.
that will only get you mad. That
Oh
will only
dear.
get you mad.
Oh
And
dear.
so, I mean, we've seen all these things, but
Mm.
then, I mean, talking about the animals, there's an estimated loss of about what 10,000 species of animals yearly. So that's
Globally.
something, exactly. So that's
Whoa.
something we need to
Whoa.
worry about.
Right. Thank you, Hafiz, for the opening submission. Let me move on to Epi and let's hear her and maybe share an experience or two after visiting a zoo, or if you have not, just boldly and freely tell me. I would smile. It's not a bad thing. Have you ever?
Of course I have.
Ah, right. Where? In
Accra.
Accra, the Accra Zoo.
Yeah.
Wow. And which animal were you actually, anxious to see at that time? Or which wildlife animal should I
The
say?
lion.
The lion. Why is everybody? Anyway, yeah, lion. I know. You'd be surprised what Mommy was
like
anxious to see.
the
That is if she
mane.
visited. Sorry, the name, huh?
The mane.
The mane.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I know, right?
fascinated by the
Mm,
mane.
mm.
And
And
then,
how huge it was.
yes.
The lion is actually very huge. Okay.
The snakes are really not.
I know, right?
kind of a thing.
Right. So, I mean, today is World Wildlife Day, a very important conversation in our existence,
Yes, and this year's theme basically is forest and livelihoods.
Right.
Yes, and looking at sustaining people
Mhm.
and planets.
Okay.
So this is like a way to highlight the central role of forest,
Okay.
forest species, and
Mhm.
ecosystem services
Exactly.
in sustaining the livelihoods of people,
Mm.
which we're looking at hundreds of millions of people globally.
Right.
You understand? And particularly the indigenous and local communities who have historic ties
Mm-hmm.
to some of these forests and this forest adjacent areas.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's quite disturbing,
Mm.
but then as much as we're trying to maintain and keep and all that, we actually have endangered species.
Right.
And so if we say something is an endangered species, basically it means that there's not much of it. You just have a little left and then they're extinct. You can no more find
Find
them
them.
in the
Yeah.
world. We have endangered species of animals
Right.
and endangered species of plants. Let's not forget the World Wildlife Day does not just focus on animals; it also does focus
And
on
plants as well.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, if you have the UNESCO World Heritage,
Mm-hmm.
the list actually includes many forest areas with different climate zones. I
Right,
mean,
right.
you have the boreal forest, the temperate forest, the subtropical forest, and the woodlands, as well as the tropical forest themselves and the mangrove forests. So
Right.
There are different ones. Some range from 18 hectares to 5.8 million hectares, and that's in Brazil.
Yeah, talk about Brazil. Now, Brazil is actually the Earth's biodiversity champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, between the Amazon rainforest and Mata Atlantica forest, the woody savanna like Cerrado, the massive island swamp known as the Pantanal, and a range of other terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Now, Brazil leads in the world plant and amphibian species count. Wow. So, yes.
Yes, that's what I was saying. We currently have about 1 million out of the 8 million animals and plant species that in the world are threatened with extinction.
Not the good news.
No, and this is unfortunately, most of it is due to human activities.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
Exactly.
All
So
right.
it's quite disturbing. This is just things we can do, but then let me just take you through a bit of statistics because we currently have a biodiversity that is rapidly deteriorating. Yes, and the ecosystem is just being disturbed. So the average abundance of native species has dropped by at least 20% in settled habitats since 1900. And now we have more than 40% of the amphibian species, that is around 33% of reef-forming corals, and more than a third of all marine mammals that are threatened nowadays. And this we can link directly to plastic waste.
Yeah, another bad, human activity, which is
Yes.
actually threatening, not just too bad. Anyway.
This is something we can link directly because with all the plastic, the poly things, when they go, these animals actually do, for those of them that have their mouths wide open, while sometimes just to get fish or something, there's this, it's a shack, it's a form of a shack, and then there's also a whale, another fish, and in their mouth, it's not like a tang or something, but they have like fillets, and it's not laid forward, it's actually laid backwards. So what it does is when it actually ingests or takes in food, when the mouth is open, so the food comes in with a lot of water.
Yeah.
Now it allows it to spew out the water, but then the food doesn't, the
Remains.
solid doesn't come back. Yeah, so the
Right.
food remains so it can digest it. So when this animal actually takes in food and all this plastic and
I
polythene,
found in there.
the water comes out, but the plastic remains.
Remains there.
Which is not good for it.
For
Now,
it,
it can't
right.
digest that, and it can't also bring it out because of the way biologically its mouth structure has been made. So we've indirectly we're contributing to the death of all these animals and causing a lot of problems for them. Now, at least 680 vertebrate species have gone extinct since the 16th century.
Ooh la la. And counting,
Yeah.
I want to believe.
Yes, it's still counting.
Right.
Now, climate change is also contributing. Consumer preferences, urbanization, the change in demography, our land use changes,
Yeah.
pollution, over harvest, invasive species, and these are all spreading negatively, and they are affecting the biodiversity. You understand?
Okay.
And I mean, we've mentioned that 1 million out of the 8 million globally are actually endangered. Also, out of the number of invasive foreign species per country,
Right.
it's actually climbed up about 70% in 21 countries since the year 1970. And we have almost half, which is like 47% of land-dwelling flightless, like not birds. Yes, flightless mammals, and 23% of birds that have already been adversely affected by climate change and are threatened.
Well, the long and short of the story is we need to realize that we are all involved in this particular exercise, and we also need to get back together to fight this particular problem. Well, Mame is ready to get on board. Let's hear what she has for us, as today is World Wildlife Day.
Yeah. So, like Hafiz and you said, wildlife includes fauna and then flora, which
Exactly.
means plants and animals. And I believe this is a great day because losing all of these things is what is causing the world to be what it is right now.
Right.
Taking into consideration climate change. And since we're on the subject of wildlife, protecting wildlife, I think a case study we can look at is the Atiwa forest here in our base, Ghana.
Okay.
And before I get into that, I'd like to say something little, and then there's an audio we can listen to.
Okay.
Then we can delve into that. So that Atiwa Forest Range Reserve is in Ghana
Right.
and is internationally recognized for its gloriously diverse wildlife.
Right.
When you go to the Atiwa Range Forest Reserve,
Mm.
you can find 570 butterfly species
Mm-hmm.
that have been recorded, and this is more than any other site in West Africa. Then the
Nice.
mammals that you can find include the Geoffrey black and white colobus monkey.
The guy's name is Geoffrey. Reminds me of something. Anyway.
There's the royal antelope,
Okay.
the bushbuck,
Mm-hmm.
the black duiker,
Okay.
the brush-tailed porcupine.
Right.
You can find mongooses, you can find genets, you can find civets, squirrels, and then pangolins.
Wow.
And then a third of many of these amphibians are at a risk of extinction. Ask
Due
me
to
why.
human
Due
activity.
to human activities. And all of these activities we will find out in the audio we're about to listen to.
Okay, so let's go listen to this audio and we will be right back. You may have your comments that you would want to say right after this. Share them with us on Facebook, Africa Global Radio. We'll be right back. Listen up.
If there is one topic we should agree on, it is this. Earth is a living organism, and if it dies, we die.
Hi guys, my name is Joey B, aka
Ghana's Atiwa Forest is one of Earth's irreplaceable
story,
places.
I wrote a future.
It is home to more than 1,000 species of plants, 230 species of birds, 570 butterfly species, and at least 50 species of mammals, many of which are endangered. It is a key biodiversity area, meaning that it is critical to the persistence of global biodiversity and the overall health of the planet. It also provides water to 5 million Ghanaians. But the forest, its rivers, and the people who rely on them face a grave threat. In 2016, the Ghanaian government announced plans to mine bauxite from beneath Atiwa Forest. Extracting the bauxite, the main ingredient in aluminum, involves removing the whole surface layer of soil, and would cause catastrophic biodiversity loss and irreversible damage to the watershed. Hopefully, other companies will now follow the lead of BMW, Tetra Pak, and Shuko International, who have voiced their concerns over the use of bauxite sourced from Atiwa, putting additional pressure on the government of Ghana. And a coalition of conservation organizations are continuing to call on Ghana to protect this special forest, joining local calls to turn Atiwa Forest into a national park. Doing so would economically benefit the country more than bauxite mining, and would mean protection of countless wildlife species and an ecosystem that helps keep our planet and all life on Earth healthy. Join us in calling on the government of Ghana to help save Atiwa Forest, protecting it in perpetuity by making it a national park.
I love Africa Global Radio.
All right, and that's a beautiful piece right there. And of course, apologies for the wrong clip earlier. But yeah, this is a very interesting and of course revealing in terms of statistics. Give us a few numbers right there that we can all talk about. Mommy,
Barry.
yeah, I mean, we all had it when
We all had it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this is I found it on Twitter.
Okay.
One time, I think I was trying to look for a certain hashtag, and then I
Right.
chanced upon it.
Wow.
And then I saw it, and I was like, "This is a forest, a forest reserve that is not benefiting just the people of Ghana.
Ghana,
It's benefiting
exactly.
the whole
The
world
whole
as a whole.
world.
And this is something
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
lose
Yeah,
could actually mess with the climate of the entire world.
absolutely.
So why are we not saving this forest?
I remember when the issue of the mining of the bauxite, came in, and a lot of, most environmentalists thought, some were like, well, the view, like, you know what, stop it. Others were like, okay, do it, but try as much as possible to
replace.
exactly, not to make the biodiversity nature of that particular place, go extinct, because most of these, species would die.
Would
Others
die
would actually,
out.
just
Yes.
flee the places, which would take them to another environment where may not be a suitable, habitat for them. Obviously, would see their extinction there as well. So, a very dicey issue there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
so the question that comes to mind right now is why isn't the government listening to these organizations?
Well, I believe
And
they.
these organizations that actually use the aluminium made out of bauxite to make the things they make.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they're calling on a government to protect a forest, even though it will mess with the business because we need aluminium, and if we do not get it, we cannot manufacture these cars and all of these
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
But we are thinking about the world, and we are thinking about the climate.
Thinking
We are
about
thinking about a place
livelihood, you
that
know.
provides water for over 5 million
Ghanaians.
Ghanaians.
Yes, and that's very, very important. So I think today being.
Yeah, so I believe there's a petition everybody should sign on to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, you can go on and social media and talk about the subject using the hashtag Save the Atiwa Forest.
That's absolutely true. Thank you. And this is a very important tape you can listen to. The playback on africaglobalradio.com AJR on demand, and listen to it critically, and you get to understand some of these, protesting and issues surrounding preserving our environment and our base Ghana. But then, Hafiz.
Yeah, well, what is talking about the forest.
Yeah.
Like we said, I mean, we are not just talking about forest and everything. We are talking about animals. And she's talking Ghana. I would like to shift the conversation to Kenya.
Okay.
Yes, and do something there. Now, when you talk about animals, especially lion, when you talk Kenya, now, if you go to the southern part of Kenya, there's a tribe called the Maasai tribe.
The Maasai, yeah.
Yes. Now, the Maasai tribe engage in what you call the lion hunting as a rite of passage.
Okay.
Yes.
To prove you're a man.
To prove you're a man.
Go get a lion.
Especially when the ladies are around. I mean, it's
guy will be willing to kill himself.
Exactly.
No
it's
joke.
It's a way to woo the girls.
Exactly.
Usually when you display your bravery like that by bringing back the head of a lion and everything. Yes. And usually it's done in groups and everything when they do this. Now, here's the thing in Kenya. Now, all forms of hunting, including lion hunting, that is, has been banned since 1977. But then
in Kenya, right?
But then it is still legal if a perpetrator can prove that he was doing it in defense of his life or property.
Okay.
So in the property here, we are talking livestock.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yes. Now, the thing is, in trying to hunt down perpetrators because of these laws and everything.
Yeah.
They carry out this exercise in groups, so it's very difficult to isolate an individual to go after, especially when they are saying it's a cultural practice. Now, according to the AP, that is the Associated Press, that Kenya's lion population dropped from 250,000 4 decades ago to only 35,000 because of this practice. Now, thankfully, they are moving away from that practice because of all these things that is.
Yeah.
Yes, because of this. So they are moving away from that practice. And they've decided to actually, substitute with what they call the Maasai Olympics.
Okay.
Yes. And so during this Olympics, they engage in running events.
Okay.
They do a lot of throwing of the clubs.
Okay.
And they also do high jump, but it's not like your usual Olympics high jump.
Okay.
Yes,
I hope there's no boxing, because if these guys are eyeing this particular girl, it won't be a pretty experience. Anyway, that's just by the way.
So
right.
in terms of the jump, usually it's a jump just in a vertical position, just to see how high
you can go.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I think I've seen a couple of pictures of that. Yeah.
So
yeah.
usually they end up winning medals. Some even get scholarships. Some even get the opportunity to travel to New York City to take part in the marathon.
Right. Super. Great. Epi.
Sorry.
Wildlife we are. And like I like the part where they have to include boxing. Charlie, it's very necessary. Guys need to demonstrate how strong they are. Right.
So I'm just gonna give a quick list of some of endangered animal species in Africa.
Okay.
So that as much as we can, let's join on campaigns and then sign up and show that we also put our voice out there.
Right.
To protect and save the lives of these endangered animals. So we have the African elephant.
Okay.
And we know why these ones are being gunned down, being slaughtered. It's just because of the ivory. Because of their tusk. And I don't know, but most often, some of these ones are linked to royal lineages in the sense that they're setting culture, setting traditions that ivory is actually limited or reserved for royalty.
Or a certain class.
Exactly.
I know of the Igbos. They normally hold it. They kind of have this. Some actually Yeah,
Some
the
actually
royal
use
symbol.
it for
Yeah.
necklaces.
Exactly.
Different things
Yeah.
actually. So
Yeah.
I feel that we should actually, if as much as you want to purchase and have that to use to distinguish you, find out and know that, just like we do for blood diamonds,
Okay.
find out and know that the chain or lining which is coming from
Right.
is not coming from,
An illegal
slaughtering.
source and what have
Exactly.
you. Okay.
Exactly. Now we also have the African penguin.
Okay.
Yes, and there's currently less than 27,000 of them living today globally.
Okay.
And the numbers are decreasing, and these are due to fishing as well. Some of them are caught in nets and stuff. We have the African lion.
Okay.
Yes, we have a little over 22,000 of them. Their numbers are also dwindling gradually. We have the cheetah.
Okay.
And we have like nearly 14,000 of them exist today. And that tells you the numbers are literally low globally. We have the black rhinoceros, and that we have just a little over 3,500 of them.
Yeah.
That's the only number that exists globally.
Okay.
We have the African wild dog, and that's like over 4,000. You have the pygmy hippopotamus.
Okay.
You have the mountain gorilla. And then you have the Ethiopian wolf, and you have the addax.
The others.
And the addax is the most endangered because it's like it has just a list of the numbers as well, just over 200
Oh la la. Across.
across the
world.
world. Yes,
Ooh la la.
just 200.
All right, let's do well to be the ones to champion this. Particular, these species generally, saving them from being extinct. Hafiz, want to say something finally?
Yeah. In my submission, I remember when I talked about Cecil, something just came.
Yeah,
to
the
me.
lion.
It's just a question I want to ask. Hopefully.
Wait,
yes,
I hope it's not one of those
It's
of
not-
yours. I just want to be sure.
Why are you guys doing this?
Nobody's doing anything. I just want to be sure before you. Anyway,
No.
continue.
I just want to know what your stand is on legal hunting.
Legal hunting.
I mean, it seems to be one of the issues that came up when Cecil was killed, was hunted down. I mean, some actually back it, some do not. I mean, I just want to know your stance on what legal. I mean, why you think hunting should even be legal?
I think it
Certain-
depends. It depends on what particular animal you're hunting in the first place. And for hunting, I believe you're hunting.
If you're hunting a lion, it's okay.
No, why are you hunting the lion in the first place? Do you want to eat the lion?
Do they want to know why?
I think so. The reason behind your hunting should be known, because why
And
would
the type of animal as well.
exactly?
Because we know we eat. Some
Because if it's
animals.
for if it's for food purposes, the what you call the sheeps and the goats and what have you, these are the ones that we are
Yeah,
and what do you call it, the cow. These are the ones that we mostly know.
But these are not endangered, are they?
I know, but what I'm
So
saying.
you're talking about hunting endangered animals.
No, you see, the thing with, like, I'm talking about, say, the lion,
Mhm.
especially in the case of Cecil.
Yeah.
Now, one of the sticking points or the arguments that came up when they wanted to prosecute the perpetrators was simple. They argued that they were doing it legally. Now, in certain countries, if you take Zimbabwe, for instance,
Yeah.
beyond a certain protective zone, it's legal, it's perfectly legal. Yes.
Okay.
So if they stray into certain zones, that's
Yeah.
why I said even in Kenya, there are certain instances where if you're able to prove that you are doing it because out of fear for your
For
life,
your life,
or
okay.
they were actually attacking your livestock,
You
then
could kill them.
exactly.
Fine.
Now these are certain gray areas that is still causing a lot of confusion in these countries where I mean we see these things still happen. And so in the case of Cecil, the argument came up because the perpetrator was screaming that he was doing it legally. Why? Because he was out of a particular zone.
Right.
Yes, and the argument has always been okay. So why should it still be legal? Now there have always been arguments for and arguments against. Now for those that support legal hunting and everything, there was a study conducted in South Africa,
Okay.
especially with the case of rhinoceros, and they realized that yes, once they actually allowed the legal hunting of them, they realized that not only the landowners were very protective of these animals, and so the animals actually doubled over time.
Right.
So even though they subscribed to them being hunted, but they realized that the number that was lost did not was
Affect-
paled.
yeah.
You know what? Essentially paled in comparison to the numbers they gained.
Okay.
That's those that support it.
The hunting.
Exactly. Now
Okay.
for those that are against it, now the argument has always been that this doesn't exactly apply to lions.
Okay.
Because with lions, their they are mighty territorial. Yes, you mentioned how when they are in certain territories, the female
Yeah.
actually are the ones that go around doing the hunting.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you have a lion in a certain territory and somehow it gets killed, what it means is that those in the deeper part
would also come occupy those.
would occupy those spaces,
Okay.
increasing their chances of
Getting killed.
human contact.
Right. Right.
So there are so many arguments at this, but it's still one of those arguments where they still make in Zimbabwe. Whether there's, with the proper documentation, you should be able to do it or not.
Okay.
So there are a lot of arguments.
I think there should be barriers generally. We don't really have much time. We would have delved into conversations because it's an interesting place to talk about. I mean, if you're looking at animals that are supposed to be preserved, for wildlife, what have you, activities and what have you, tourism and the likes, definitely you'd be looking at a law, or legal proceeding that would actually see their protection, right? But if you're also looking at it in the sense that you want to protect yourself from being attacked and what have you, that's another conversation because I think it's a bit technical, it's a bit dicey. But
it's not just as simple as
it's not
banning
as easy.
it.
Exactly.
Hunting is actually venturing into a forest to kill
Exactly.
animals.
Yeah.
Why are you venturing into a forest to kill a lion?
And rare, it's very rare to see these animals.
There's a difference
living
between the
there.
animal coming into your territory and then you killing it because you're trying to protect your life or
and
your
you
livestock.
following
and you
it
actually
into
venturing
the
into
forest
its habitat
to
to
kill it.
No, you see, the thing with the Cecil case was simple.
Uh-huh.
They established that they tricked the lion by strapping a carcass to a vehicle, and then
So it followed it.
Yeah, it followed it out of his area.
So
and
that-
that was when technically it made it legal for them. That was their
But that was
argument.
ill intent because you
Exactly.
deliberately did that.
So
Right?
that was the argument. Anyway, so if
And
if
they had to even argue. Look at it. You know what? We don't really have it. It's an interesting conversation, but
You know,
let's proceed
like,
because of time.
Talking about this, then
Yeah.
it just came to me. What if animals one day also decide to move out of the forest carrying guns, and
Well-
then they decide to legally hunt humans?
They don't even need to carry guns. The lion just
quite an imagination.
I know, right? It's a fantasy world, but yeah, interesting one right there. Thank you guys for joining me on the discussion zone right here, and it's all about the World Wildlife Day. Let's see what governments would have to say and what they're actually doing. Maybe today in the news, local news, would get to see if there are any, activities or something that actually is geared towards the preservation and looking to protect these wildlife and what have you. All right, the show is Africa Daily on Africa Global Radio.
I love Africa Global Radio.